Welcome to the Steelbirds podcast. I'm your host, Corey King, and Harry Brockington IV, aka Brock. What's going on, man?
What's up, man?
How goes it? We're in the thick of it now.
Right?
Yep.
Real ball being played soon.
Yep. It's the middle of the preseason. We had Eagles had their second preseason game yesterday. Steelers have theirs tomorrow. So we're just gonna, talk ball. We're gonna just run through what happened in the first preseason game, what we noticed, and then talk about the joint practices this week for both of our teams. And then I'll quickly talk about the Eagles' second preseason game as well, and then Brock will talk about what he's planning to see or what he's looking for their second game tomorrow. And then we'll hop into grind our gears and call it a day. So I can start us off here. For and off jump, they said going into the game there were reports that the starters would play, and that was true for the defense, but the offense, no starter played, which I thought was an interesting move. Seeing that they were talking about the whole offseason, new offense, they need reps, all this shit. None of the starters played on offense. So that was interesting. And then, I just noticed off rip too, the opening kickoff, we had Isaiah Rodgers and Kenny Gainwell back there, which I thought was cool. Just to see who's back there. I don't think Kenny Gainwell is that explosive of a guy, so I was surprised they like him that much to be a kick returner. I thought it'd be more like Britton Covey or throw a Nias Smith back there, or even Will Shipley, the running back that we drafted. They said he has some juice, so I thought they'd throw him back there, but it was Kenny Gainwell. And then when the first team offense came out there after that opening drive, it was the receivers were John Ross, Britton Covey, and what's his name? The tall dude, Johnny Wilson. There we go. Yeah, Johnny Wilson. So those guys and Paris Campbell, who's injured, are the ones who are competing for receiver 3, and unfortunately for them, they couldn't really show much. No one was really getting separation. There was about 3 plays in a row, I think, where Kenny Pickett was targeting Nate Wiggins, and he wadded the ball every single time. He looked locked down on any receiver that was on him. He was locking them up. They are receiver 3 for us, but still, he looked good at least. And at the same time, Kenny Pickett in this game and the next, we'll talk about it more. He wasn't looking great. I think him and Tanner McKee, the other quarterback that played in this Ravens preseason game, had it was like 4-point-something yards per attempt. It was like under 200 yards, which is just sad. I don't think either of them completed a pass that was 20 yards down the field. They barely threw any balls that were that deep. So just a pathetic effort out there on offense, a pathetic showing. But, that's how it goes sometimes in preseason, especially the first preseason game. They're probably not trying to show much, and they're still trying to figure it out, but just did not look good at all. And I hope, eventually I hope the starting Eagles offense can get out there and we can see that like the offense works in some capacity. Hopefully it's not a struggle for our starters the way it is for our backups. But with that being said, scheme wise, there was a cool play that I haven't seen from the Eagles in years, which was, the first touchdown was a under center play action rollout dump off to Will Shipley, the running back who scored the first touchdown of the preseason there, which was dope to see because, like I've been saying multiple times now, the Eagles under center rate was one of the lowest in the leagues besides the QB sneak, and they never ran the ball out of under center. So to even have like a play action play out of that is fun, and that'll open up more stuff in the red zone and short yardage and help us get be that much better as an offense. yeah. So that's pretty much it on the offensive side of the ball there. Defensively, the first linebackers out were Devin White and Zach Bond, which I noticed. That's been the story all camp is like those two, and then Kobe Dean all rotate in with the ones. And they all seem to be doing okay. Like I'll talk about Nakobe Dean more when I talk about the second game, but they all seem fine, serviceable. It doesn't seem like they're liabilities like our linebackers last year, which is a huge step up there. And then Isaiah Rogers and Keely Ringo were the starting outside corners, and Quinyon Mitchell was in the slot for the first part of this first preseason game because Slay didn't play. So those are the three that are kind of competing for corner two and slot corner. Then we had Avonte Maddox and James Bradbury at safety, which a lot of people wanted Avonte Maddox for years to like play at safety because he seemed like it would be a natural transition for him, and an easier role for him than playing in the slot. Slot corner isn't easy. He's a smaller corner, but he has like natural instincts and he can cover, in zone areas very well. So I think him in the safety was a good move, and it seems to be a good fit. So he's doing well there. And then, the last kind of thing that I was looking at was besides Quinyon Mitchell, actually. Quinyon Mitchell, I was watching him some. He had a pass breakup. He looked pretty good in the slot and at outside, which is good to see. I think him being able to play all over the field is going to be helpful for depth and, just having an overall better coverage unit if he can, do all the things. That's really helpful. But besides him, another guy I was watching a lot was Nolan Smith, who at times, looked good. They've been saying all camp like he looks explosive. He looks like he's, being able to, he can beat tackles off the ball. He has a really good get off. But and I saw some of that, but at the same time, he was supposed to be a guy coming out who could cover, somewhat. He was going to be like that 3-4 linebacker who could come off the edge and cover, in zones. And he just looks kind of lost still. Last year, he did that some, and he didn't look like he really knew what was going on. In this game, he looked like he was struggling a little bit. He held a guy. He had a dumb penalty where he was holding someone trying to cover them. It's just like it just doesn't look natural for him, even though that was like part of his, that was on his whole scouting report coming out of college, was that oh, he can cover, he's super athletic. He is athletic, but there's a difference between knowing how to play football and cover on a defense versus just being an athlete. So
True. Yep.
He's still got to figure it out mentally, it seems. But as a pass rusher, he's looking a lot better. He had a sack in this game. It's not as bad as it was last year. This time last year, he didn't show much at all, and then during the season, I think he had 3 QB hits. It was bad. So the fact that he's getting sacks, he's looking good is a good sign. I just want to see more before I am yeah, he's going to be our edge. He's going to be our starter before I feel happy about it, because I still have some questions, especially with us paying and relying on Bryce Huff over Hassan Reddick. There's just a lot of unproven guys right now in our edge unit. So I just want to see more, see how they do. But overall, it was a pretty boring ass game until the end. The Eagles had a chance to win. Our kicker, who rarely misses in clutch situations, Jake Elliott, he missed a 50-yard field goal, and then the next play, I think it was, we had a strip sack, and then he got his chance to kick another game-winning field goal, and then he won it, and that was how the game ended. So it was kind of dramatic at the end, but overall it was pretty boring affair. But
typical preseason game.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was Eagles Ravens. It was nice to see, football's back, and it was good. So how the Steelers first preseason game go? I didn't watch it, so you gotta let me know how it
Yeah,
all went.
well, at least y'all won,
Yeah,
the game. Not that it matters, but, at
right.
least getting to see, a win is always good. But
Yeah.
yeah, we lost our preseason game. Overall, I'll say it was, just a lot of hurting ourselves. They played their starters for, I think it was only one or two series. CJ Stroud ended up hitting Tank Dell on like a 34-yard tub, and they got taken
Mm-hmm.
out after that. Um, but yeah, just a lot of you know self-inflicting wounds, and we only ended up losing by a score. So I definitely feel like, barring those, we probably possibly could have won that. But the some of the more alarming mistakes was just the snaps between Nick Herbig and Justin
Yeah,
Fields, and
I did
so
see that. Yep. Yep.
um, everybody obviously has all their eyes on Justin Fields and they want to blame him immediately, but it was very obvious during the game if you watched it, but it was said afterwards that I was on Nick Herbig. People want to say it should always be on the quarterback, but if the snap is when they're under center, if the snap is snapped harder than usual, obviously that can be different on people's fingers and how you have your hands when you're down there. So it's not always on the quarterback, but they obviously expect the quarterback to be able to get it no matter what. But Nick Herbig did come out and say that those were on him. So those are unfortunate because, one of them was a key drive killer where we were driving. And then that made us get into a long second and long. And then third down, we really couldn't get all those yards back. So that kind of stymied that drive. But overall, other than that, Justin looked fine. He didn't get the greatest protection. Troy Fautanu had a sack that he gave up. He started to play well after that, and it was unfortunate that sometime between there he got injured. He didn't say anything about it. He wanted to, stay out there, but then it was, reported that he asked for a brace coming into halftime, and that's when they kind of, found out about it. And so he's looking, ready to be back week one, but we're being cautious about it. It's an MCL sprain. So
Mm.
that happened with him. Zach Frazier came in for Nick Herbig at center, and he killed it. He did very well. So it's kind of looking like week one that should be our starter because, Nick Herbig was never a center to begin with. He was always a guard. They
Yeah.
kind of just transitioned him into a center because we didn't really have centers. And so that's kind of what that situation has looked like. Broderick, is still dealing with his elbow injury, but he's been on both sides. He looked a little bit better, especially recently in practice. So he's recovering from that. But overall, man, didn't get to see Russ. He's still dealing with his calf. Kyle Allen came in, and we really haven't had really a serviceable QB2 or 3, really, to be honest. And so it was nice to see him be able to throw some dimes. He had some missed throws, had an interception at the end trying to get us back. But overall, what I saw is something that we haven't seen, in probably 5-6 years for the Steelers offense, which is just throwing the ball to the middle of the field, play action being used,
Mm.
motion being used. We've talked about how motion is really important in the league, whether you're using it to get that, guide the ball or just as a diversion, something the Steelers, for whatever reason, never wanted to use with Matt Canada. Or if we did use it, it was just a complete disaster, like high
Yeah.
school
It was
football.
like,
It's like
yeah,
it
he
wasn't
like
used enough, but when we did use it, it just didn't make sense when he used it.
yeah, it was like a motion into a weird route that would never
Right.
never made
And
sense. Yeah.
it was more of like when we were using it, it was a tell of what we were going to do. So it was like the
Yeah.
defense knew we were only doing it because we were about to run a certain way. So it
Right.
wasn't even used in the way that, most of the league uses motion.
For
And so
sure.
that's really what I was, it's a lot of vanilla stuff. Everyone talks about the same thing, inside zone, whatever in preseason. But it was encouraging to see that even the vanilla stuff was things that the Steelers offense wasn't accustomed to. And that's something that we need to get behind to be kind of, a high powered offense in the league nowadays. And so I liked seeing all of that. So, didn't win the game, but, it's preseason is what it is. So, I'm liking what I'm seeing. And then obviously barring any injuries with the starters, it should be a lot differently, obviously, with the first team. Um, and so, after that practice, Troy Fautanu is out. He's not gonna, practice until probably the week of week one versus the
Mm.
Falcons. They're saying he should be back by then. Zach Frazier has gotten a lot more reps with the ones, and so it's looking like he's going to overtake that spot. Roman Wilson has been seen without a boot. He's, practicing on the sidelines, catching balls and stuff like that now. So that's encouraging. We don't see, they say they don't see him, being set back by him being out. So that's good too. I'm thinking Calvin Austin is going to be in that third wide receiver role with GP and Van Jefferson. But, they're saying that Roman could still be, interchangeable with him, which is still good to hear. So I like that. And then we had our joint practice with the Bills. And so, usually how joint practices go is there's just fights and, you're not really seeing much. It's just like, it's really for the team to not have to go against each other anymore because everyone's just restless and tired of going against their teammates and stuff like that. But, for the first time in a little minute, it was good to see that the Steelers were dominating. A lot of scores. Bills, were having their starters in there for the most part, couldn't stop us on defense. And then when we went to defense, we just had a lot of batted balls, had an interception on Mr. Trubisky. So Josh Allen didn't really play in most of those 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 periods. We kept out TJ ourselves, so I know a lot of the main focused guys weren't involved. But it was just good to see that guys were flying around and a lot of positive plays were being made, and there wasn't too bad of injuries. We only, I think, had two guys that had to walk off, Dejon Edwards and then our other running back, Jonathan Ward. But other than that, went well. Wasn't any fights. So, it was said that it was appreciated between both squads that things could have, gotten out of hand, but it was, handled respectfully. So that was good to see too. And so basically what I'm looking forward in this second game tomorrow night is just it said that Russ is going to start with the ones. So I just really want to see like how hampered is he? Like, was that a real injury or is it what we kind of heard, which is when a medical staff or the athletic staff finds out that you have a calf injury, they want to be cautious with it because a calf injury can lead to ACLs or any other injuries because it's like from the bottom up, basically. If that's going wrong, then your body's going to try to compensate for that and then you get injured elsewhere. So I just really want to see if it was that or if it actually was he was really injured. Want to see how he plays, kind of want to see, how the ball comes off of his hand, if he still kind of has that zip and power that people are used to seeing, his moon ball that everyone likes seeing. And then just seeing Justin Fields bounce back, he kind of got saved in the first game. They said it was Nick Herbig's fault, whatever. But if you kind of see he's fumbling around and messing up, you can't just keep making excuses for him. So I just want to see him have a clean game, no, fumbles or interceptions, anything like that. And then on the defensive side, I just want to see, hopefully Dante Jackson gets to get some reps. I want to just see him in live action for a few series. Corey Trice, the rookie that we had from Purdue, 7th round pick, he tore his ACL last year, but he was having a better camp than Joey Porter Jr. We talked about that. He's having another great camp, so it's looking like he's going to be interchangeable on the outside with them. So I'm really glad to see that he's carving out a role for himself. He's staying healthy, so want to see what he has to bring. And then just guys staying healthy. But I just kind of want to see a cleaner game. At the end of the day, if it's a loss, it's not a big deal. But I just want to see not, us shooting ourselves in the foot and just see a clean game. And if it comes out that we still lose, I'm cool with that. I just want to see everybody, stay healthy, not making a lot of mistakes. So hopefully we see that tomorrow night.
Yeah, definitely. That's good. It's good to hear. Is there any like young guys that like stood out in those joint practices or anything, or like someone or maybe even someone that like you didn't think was balling and now you're like, oh, going into this game, like they had a good week of practice. Let's see. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Beanie Bishop, I mentioned him before, undrafted out of West Virginia, smaller slot corner guy. But he's been making, a lot of noise. Like the first couple of days of camp, he was getting to the Steelers facility before, Terrell Austin, our defensive coordinator, leaving him notes saying like, I beat you again. I got here, whatever. So they kind of liked his personality off the jump, but then his personality and his play was kind of the same. He was just out there being very vocal for, a rookie that was undrafted. And then when the first depth chart came out, he was listed as, a starter for the nickel position. So he's been battling with another free agent that we picked up, Braylon Arnold, but unfortunately he's out on IR. So they were kind of battling, but just the fact that he was battling with a guy that was a vet was really huge. And now it's looking like it's his, it's his position to lose because Braylon Arnold got injured. So I'm really liking what he's bringing to the table. He's gotten a lot of pick sixes in practice and stuff like that. So he's very good at jumping routes, has good instincts, and he doesn't get beat a lot. He has good speed too. So I just want to see him continue to carve out a role because, like I said, it's just really cool to see stories like that, like a Jalen Warren, where you don't know if football's in your future. You might have to go into the workforce and start as they say, real life. But a guy like that that's carving out a role for himself is exciting to see. So just want to see him be consistent and continue to play that way. And then two guys, edge wise, Jeremiah Moon. He's a free agent that we picked up that got a cut from the Ravens, and then Kyron Johnson, another free agent guy. Randomly, we had I'm blanking on his name, Marcus Golden. He randomly retired. We were looking for a fourth edge because right now, obviously, our rotation is TJ, Alex Highsmith, and then Nate Herbig, which is Nick Herbig's younger brother. So that's kind of our rotation. But we wanted a fourth guy, and so we picked back up Marcus Golden from last season, and then 8-9 days into it, he decides to retire, and so now that fourth spot is wide open. But both Kyron Johnson and Jerron Moon have impressed. They both have really good pass rushing moves. Specifically, Kyron Johnson, they say his ghost move is amazing. He had a lot of good production with that. So I know both of those guys are going to be battling because I think we're probably only going to be able to keep one of them. So those two younger dudes have impressed me. I haven't really watched film on any of them, really knew about either one of them. So the fact that they're flashing on every practice and, Mike Tomlin is talking to them both and, on the side, telling them how well they're doing. That's encouraging to see because we really do need depth at the pass rushing position. So I actually want to see, now that you brought that up, how they do on Saturday too, because like I said, I think it's only going to be one or the other, and they both are playing really well. So hopefully, if whoever we end up keeping, the other one can go to another squad, and because they, put it on tape, they can make a way for themselves somewhere else too.
Yeah, nice. Word. Yeah. So for the Eagles, during their joint practices with the Patriots, they were saying the usual, like, no one can cover AJ Brown or Devontae Smith. They were cooking the whole time, especially AJ Brown. Now that we have these joint practices and it's getting like longer and longer since when Jalen Hurts is still he still hasn't thrown any picks this whole training camp or anything. So like now it's making national news. This week my guy Nick Wright, who's a big Eagles hater, he came out and was saying like on his show like, oh, he's not taking enough risks and he's being too cautious. That's why he's not throwing interceptions. Or he's like, or the Eagles secondary that was so bad last year is even worse because now they can't get any picks. So it's just funny to see like how not throwing interceptions became a bad thing, even though last year he was throwing too many.
On him. So yeah, exactly.
You just can't win. But personally, just looking at every video of him throwing balls against teams or in practices on 7-on-7, 11-on-11, whatever, and hearing from the people that like I trust on Twitter and stuff who are at those practices, it's like, no, he's not. Jalen Hurts isn't like a cautious thrower. Like he likes to give guys a chance. He'll try and fit balls into tight spaces and tight windows. He's not gonna not throw a ball because he's afraid of throwing an interception. He's just he's just throwing good balls, and it's part of interception. It's part of like turnover luck in general. It's just luck. Like sometimes the ball bounces your way and it's a pick, or sometimes it doesn't. Same with fumbles. So
yeah, that's true.
Some of those interceptions he had last year were fluky. So that should naturally just go down off like regression. So I'm not worried about him at all. I don't think he's being too cautious, and I think he's due to have a bounce back year. But it was just funny that like is becoming national news now that he's not throwing any interceptions. Because again, they went against the Patriots this week in practice, and you would think going against a different defense, maybe something would happen. You throw a pick, trying to do something. I don't know, or the players are better, whatever. But not yet, at least. So that's good to see. They said defensively, there was like one practice in particular where like the Patriots media people were like, yeah, we lost count of like how many sacks there were. Like the Eagles D line is destroying us. Like, and again, like I don't want to get too excited because I know that this D line has a lot to prove, but that's just another thing that's like good to hear that they were doing well, you know. I don't think the Patriots O line is all that good. I think it's gonna be a rough year for them on both
Yeah,
sides of the ball. But
no, definitely.
to have that many sacks in the practice where like people are like, Jesus Christ, like that's a
Right.
lot. So that's fun. And another thing that I was hearing and I was liking was that, they said, throughout his time in the league, they said, we all saw that like Nakobe Dean struggled in coverage at times, but even in these joint practices, there were moments where he did, but then at the same time, he also made some good plays. And one play in particular, like he was against, I forget if it was a tight end. It was someone who was like much bigger than him, but like he wasn't in a great position, but he still like just made a play on the ball and it turned into an interception for someone else. So it's like stuff like that is great for him because he's had a lot of trouble in coverage. And then
Right.
just going from there, we can just to talk about that second preseason game. He also, looked good in coverage in that second preseason game. There was one play in particular where like he diagnosed the screen like right away, went and made the tackle. It was very quick, like natural, good play on the ball, on the ball carrier. And overall, he just looks like he's playing really well. And just looking at, it's the preseason again, and like people have barely played, but just looking at PFF here, he's the second highest graded linebacker right now per PFF. So, and what is he in coverage? I think he's high in coverage too. Just overall, he's the second highest graded linebacker, and I think he's third in coverage grade. If this shit wants to work for me. Come on. All right, it's being slow for me, but yeah, he's doing well in coverage. He's just playing good ball right now, which is really exciting for him. Because I want him to succeed. I want him to do well. And then just go back a little. Before the game even started, people were saying that Mekhi Becton was just on the sideline chilling. Yeah, Nakobe Dean's third in coverage grade. There we go. I thought so. Before the game, Mekhi Becton was just on the sideline chilling, and the guy who he was competing with, Tyler Steen, for the right guard job, was fully suited and was playing, and then he ended up getting hurt. But that kind of just shows, I think, that the right guard battle is over, and Mekhi Becton won because the fact that he didn't even dress to play in the preseason game kind of means, I think, that they're chilling because the Eagles' offensive starters again didn't play at all in this preseason game, which is fine for me because when you have joint practices, like you kind of saw what you needed to see. You don't need your starters to play in the game. Versus last week, they said they were going to play and didn't. I didn't expect them to play this week. And defensively, I think the only main defensive starter that like people were surprised played was Bryce Huff, who he came out after the game himself and said, like it's just a new scheme and everything is pretty new for him. So he just wanted to get more reps. And when he played, he only played like, I think, drives, but when he played, he looked good. He had like a nice play where it was like he diagnosed the screen and made a tackle on the receiver, coming off of, like, he came off the block quickly, ran, made a tackle, which was cool. So that's good because he going into this this preseason, I was kind of concerned if he was going to do well, and it's hard when you're going against Lane Johnson every day in practice to stand out. So people were like, "Oh, he's not showing anything," but again, it's like you're going against one of the best tackles, if not the best tackle in the league, so it's hard to really show much. And then this week during the practices, they said he looked great because you're going against not Lane Johnson, and then in the preseason game he looked good, so that was encouraging. And then again, my guy Avonte Maddox, he got a pick in this game, playing at safety in the red zone.
Yep.
Our red zone defense overall has looked really good, which is encouraging compared to last year. But yeah, Avonte Maddox is a guy who just has just had bad injury luck, but when he's out there, he can make plays, and I think safety is really going to be a good role for him. So
Yeah,
him, Reed Blankenship, and Sidney Brown, he comes back. You know, those guys will be good safeties for us. James Bradbury, on the other hand, has got to go. He's getting cooked out there. Jalen Polk broke his ankles bad. He was, and then Drake May on a read option had him looking silly. So it's just the James Bradbury experiment's over. He had a decent, 22, and he helped to a Super Bowl. I'll appreciate him for that, but we gotta find a new home for him, or put him in the retirement home, get him out of here. But yeah, that's basically the gist defensively. Oh, and Keely Ringo is another guy I wanted to shout out. It seems like the only time balls are caught on him is when it's like one of the best passes I've ever seen. Like last preseason game was like a back shoulder ball that was perfect. And then in this game, like Drake May like fit a perfect pass on him on like a slant, or it was like a dig. But other than that, like he's been looking good. He's always in a good position to like make a play on the ball. It's just like the two catches I saw him get beat on were just really good passes. So I think I honestly would rather see him and Slay as our outside corners than Isaiah Rodgers, just based on what I've been seeing in the preseason and just kind of how he is built. He's a bigger, faster, stronger corner than Isaiah Rodgers. So, hopefully he can kind of beat him out. And then Quinion, on one drive alone, even in this game, he went from the slot to the outside to back in the slot. So he's just playing all over the place, and he seems to be doing fine. So I'm excited to see how this whole secondary comes together. It looks promising. And on the offensive side, the main takeaway is just Kenny Pickett is just not good. He's playing with the twos, and he's just not showing much. And when Tanner McGee gets in with the threes, the offense looks way better. And I would want to see him get reps with the twos just to see how much better it could be, because Kenny Pickett is making it seem like the offense can't work and these guys are terrible. But he, one of the first plays of the game, he overthrew John Ross by like 10 yards. Like, how are you overthrowing someone who runs a 4.2? It's like, that's tough. I think at one point, I want to say through the first half, Kenny Pickett was 0 for 6 on passes that were 10 yards down the field. And through the first half, he had, I think it was, he had 11 completions in the first half. And it was an average of 0.7 air yards per completion. So air yards, again, that's from the line of scrimmage to wherever the player caught it. So that means he was barely throwing the ball like a yard per pass, which is just
sounds about right.
Pathetic. And Tanner McGee was when he played, he was 15 for 19 for 140 yards. So, he's completing everything. He's throwing good balls. On a scoring drive in particular, he threw a perfect ball in and out, and then another perfect ball on a post seam. It's just so clear. If you didn't know anything about football, didn't know who was drafted in the first round versus the 6th round, which Tanner McGee was, I think, and you just watch the game and you ask like a random person, like, who do you think is better? There'd be no debate like who you thought was better. So I just hope the Eagles I hope they can just take the L on the trade and be like, we fucked up, but Tanner McGee is our number 2, and he needs to be playing as the number 2, because it's just not even close, and I don't really see what they're seeing. But with that being said, during the broadcast, if most people were watching on NFL Network, you didn't see this or hear about this, but like as an Eagles fan, I just saw it on Twitter and stuff. But apparently during the Eagles broadcast of the game, Dave Spadaro, who's a guy who like works for the Eagles and stuff, he was talking on the broadcast with Ross Tucker and whoever was announcing, and he was saying like, yeah, the Eagles really like Kenny Pickett. You know, he's their number 2 guy. They like what they're seeing out of him, and he's going to be the number 2 guy. And it was just strange to everyone who's an Eagles fan to hear that, because you said all offseason it was going to be a competition, and now it seems like he had to say that because he's looking at Twitter and people are like, Kenny Pickett fucking sucks, like Tanner McKee's number 2, and he had to like jump on and be like, actually the Eagles really like him, and he's the number 2. It's like there was no reason to say that unless you're like trying to cover your ass, and it didn't make sense. But all that to say, this second preseason game against the Patriots looked a lot better for both sides of the ball. It wasn't as boring as the last game, and the guys that I'm paying attention to seem to be playing well. They all have flashed. Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean, Keely Ringo, Quinion Mitchell, Avonte Maddox, even Jalix Hunt, the third round pick that we have, who was kind of like they said he was going to be like a developmental guy coming out. He's splashed. He's shown some stuff here as an edge. About this, like him and Nakobe Dean are going to be, I think they're going to be like competing for time all year, because they both have shown something here in the preseason a little bit.
Good.
So
right,
yeah. But yeah, that's generally the gist of that. I'm excited to see how this last week of, I think this is like the last week of like open practices really before this last preseason game for the Eagles, and then from there it's about that time to get into it. So
yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got. Unless you got anything else you want to talk about preseason wise?
That's it, man. We can hop into my gears.
Yeah, let's hop into that and get it cracking. All right, start us off, man. What you got?
So, obviously, we talk about it. It's talked about in the media about, not getting too high on your players or your team because of how they, performed in preseason. And, the Steelers were a prime example of that. Kenny Pickett last year, we won all 3 of our preseason games.
Yeah,
he looked,
he was cooking.
amazing.
Yeah.
He was cooking whatever. And then, we saw how that, turned out. And then there's obviously teams who struggle and whatever, but then, they end up being just fine. And so, the preseason is just, it's smoke and mirrors for me, because a player can be playing very well and then, continue to play well, or it can go the opposite. So you never really know. It's just really about getting the reps and understanding who you have, and building the roster. That's what really preseason should be looked at on surface level. But also, I feel like people take the opportunity, because it's preseason, and that's like the expectations that if stuff goes wrong, then like you gotta really pile it on, and like it's a big deal. And so Justin Fields with the 2 fumbles during the game, people were already tweeting, "This dude sucks, and this is why." And all the Bears fans who were on, because I feel like the fan base was divided. A lot of people wanted and still want, Justin Fields there, and they've been saying like, we hope he does well with the Steelers, and you guys got a steal for a 6th round pick or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's a side who was very excited for Caleb or whatever, and that side mixed with analysts. They want to say that I'm not gonna say who it was, but this was during the game, and I bookmarked it. This was before both fumbles, so this is maybe like 2 or 3 snaps into the preseason. A well-renowned, analyst that works for a team tweeted and said, "Yeah, so Russ won the QB job." This was literally 3 plays into the game. And so that, for me, I'm like, what in the world? And people were under like, there's people under there that were like, yeah,
Is
like
it
Caleb,
an
whatever.
employee who recently got fired by ESPN?
No, yeah, no. Maybe this dude deserves to be fired as well. But yeah,
Okay.
there's just people under there talking. I'm reading it now from 6 days ago. Elaborate, whatever. But people unfollowed. You're an idiot. Yeah. So and then he responding to people. Tomlin looked like. Anyways, my point being, then when he took it upon himself after he fumbles twice, that to really pile it on, and it's just like, first of all, don't know how long you've been covering the game. You obviously have your credentials that you're working for an NFL team. Don't know if you played, but if you played and it was very clear that wasn't Justin's fault. He had pressure the entire time he was in the game. Obviously we were trying out Troy Fautanu, Broderick. We were doing different O-line rotations, and they were getting to him. It's not like he threw 2 interceptions. Now that you can't argue that. If he would have thrown 2 interceptions, I feel you. If he wasn't seeing the field correctly, I understand that too. But other than that, which we obviously found out it wasn't his fault, he played fine. Then obviously got taken out because we see him as somebody who can be the future, and he's still kind of battling with Russ. And then obviously, Kyle Allen played the rest of the game. And that was for a reason, because he already is, considered QB3. So it was just a lot about like, what was the point of that? And so many people jumped on that, after that. It's just like, yeah, like Justin sucks. Like, I don't even understand why the Steelers thought they got to steal. Obviously, because it was only a 6th-round pick. They should have known all these things. Like, just shut up. You don't even know what you're talking about. It's one preseason game,
Right.
and he didn't even play bad.
Yeah.
And like I said, if it continues, that's a completely different story. But you can't say that based off of that. Like, if that happened to Jalen Hurts or Justin Herbert or whatever, it's like, you would give it leeway because, those guys, are on good teams. They've done, their due diligence the past couple of years, so we're not going to say anything. But it's like every time Justin does anything, there's some type of narrative. In practice, Russ threw Justin a pass. This was before the joint practice for the Bills. Some dude tweeted out, Justin Fields is now taking snaps at wide receiver. It was like, bro, they were just throwing around before practice started. There was nobody on the field.
That's crazy.
They even tried him at running back. And that was back when training camp, or it was OTAs. Everybody was doing, ball security drills, and
Right.
Russ went through the same drill too. But they were like, oh, he's going to play running back now too. And it's like, I know, Justin has handled it very well too. Anytime he gets some type of dumb question from the media about it, he's handled it very well. But I know he's probably obviously sick of it too. So I'm just really ready for the season start and all this, really dumbass comments, to stop. Because it's like, at the end of the day, man, it's preseason, and everything can't be taken, out of context with that. If it's during the season, it's different. But I'm just really sick of that. So I can't wait for the regular season, so then, a lot of these takes can stop, hopefully.
Yeah. No, that you're preaching. I yeah, speaking of dumbass comments or just unnecessary comments, it's just on that same note. What grinds my gears is just the talk about training camp fights and just like that type of shit. It's just so tired to me. Like I nothing bothers me more. I don't know why it bothers me so much. Maybe it's because I know like people didn't play football and were ever in those situations, but they're just like, every time I see a tweet where someone's like, I don't understand why they're punching helmets. Like, why would you do that? It's like, yeah, no shit. Like, honestly, why would anyone punch a helmet? But when you're fighting a dude, like, well, you're not even thinking about that. Like,
Exactly.
if you're fighting someone in a football practice because you're that angry, like you're already angry just playing football. If you're fighting
Right.
someone past that, and you're a grown man, professional football player, and you're fighting someone, like clearly it ain't about. You're not thinking logically.
No,
So for you to
exactly.
just sit there on your keyboard while you're just at the crib chilling, why would you punch a helmet? That never made sense to me. Shut up. Just
Right.
all that stuff bothers me, man. I don't know why, but it's probably because I don't know.
We know
Like,
exactly how it
yeah,
feels to
like
be in those situations.
I know how it feels to get into a fighting practice, and like I don't want to hear someone just stupidly be like, "Why'd you do that?" That's the kind of energy that you're giving. So
Right.
that
And
that
even with that, they're making it seem like it's so annoying how could all these fights be happening and it's so unprofessional. What are you talking about? If we were
Yeah.
talking about hockey, you would be saying any of those things.
Right.
What are you talking about? It's
Yeah.
a violent sport. People are talking shit to each other,
Yeah.
and a lot of stuff happens in these practices. So what do you expect?
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, and a lot of it is just because it's open to the media. Like during the season, there could be fights too. We don't even fucking know about it because
Right.
it's not a big deal.
Thank
It
you.
just happens.
Thank you.
People
Exactly.
fight all the time. These are grown men. Dudes fight. We know in particular, like during seasons, people fight in locker rooms, and that's it.
Right.
You got to get it out sometimes, and that's ball. That's
Right.
football. But like, just all that talk is just nonsense to me, and it just bothers me so much. It's like, yeah,
Right.
like you ended with your segment, like let's fast forward to the fucking season, because I can't take any more talk
Yeah.
about preseason fights and
Complaining.
preseason nonsense and
Yeah.
yeah, all this dumb stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm
To
with you.
that point, it's funny that a lot of the media people or just people on the internet will say, and I saw this the other day where it's like, I'm sick of hearing people say, if I didn't play, then I don't get to have an opinion on the sport. So because I'm not an actor, I can't say that a movie is bad. And I'm like, yeah, please tell me that's not what I just. You didn't just sit there and type that out like that is the same thing. It's not even close to the same thing. And first of all, have an opinion all you want, but to
Right,
complain and gripe and try to get into arguments with people who lived it since they were 6 years old, played the game their whole life, you are an idiot, because it's like you could never imagine what it's like. Have your opinion. No one's telling you can't say what you want. Be a fan, get upset, be
right,
happy, whatever. That's what
right,
it's all about. But at the end of the day, don't get in here, get on the internet and act like you know more or your opinion weighs more than the people who have done it their entire lives. And that's what people are talking about. And it's just like with this too. People complaining about camp fights. What does them fighting in camp do for you as a fan?
right,
What is that doing to you?
right.
Nothing.
Yeah,
I'm tired of hearing about it. Don't go on Twitter.
right.
Unfollow. There's ways to get that out of your system. So it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm with you on that for sure.
yeah,
It's getting ridiculous to this
yeah,
point.
yeah. And I forgot to mention too, like that just reminded me, like some guys are like legit like playing for their lives, like like you're trying to make a team, like you're trying to do everything you can to like get on a roster and have life-changing money and change your whole family's like destiny. Like I will
Right.
fight anyone for that as well, like what I
Right.
mean, like if I was in that position and like some dude gave me an extra shove, like I'm taking your helmet off, what I
Right.
mean, like
Because you
this.
never know who's watching. A coach could love the fact that you
Yeah,
did that. You know what I mean?
the stakes couldn't be higher for some of these dudes who are like on bubble spots for rosters. So like
Right.
I totally understand them, playing with emotion, getting overwhelmed and just fighting. That happens. But for you to just sit there and the classic, like, why are they punching helmets? Shut the fuck up. That's it. You're done. No more tweeting for you forever.
Right.
Goodbye. So yeah. But that should do it for this week. We will come back next week, talk more preseason, talk more
Last
training
preseason
camp.
game.
Yeah, and 1 week closer to the real thing. So um be sure to follow us on our socials, at Steelbirds Pod, at Steelbirds Podcast on Instagram. Follow Brock and I on everything at It's Boy CK, at Brock_IV. Subscribe to the podcast on everything: YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and we will catch y'all next time.
Yes, sir. Peace.